Hey everyone, welcome to this Dwarf Fortress Starter Fort series, Law and Order Edition. Our fortress is growing. We're at 50 dwarves now, which by the way is nearly the same number of subscribers I have. That's pretty crazy for me. Thanks everyone for subscribing. We've just traded with the humans and we managed to get some really cool things. I'm not going to spoil it, that'll be probably in the next episode. So I'm going to move away a little bit so that doesn't get spoiled. In this episode, we're going to be talking about justice, dwarf style. As our fort expands, dwarves are going to get up to mischief. I'm really looking at you, Einod. She seems to be perpetually upset. Upset dwarves will sometimes throw tantrums and do crimes, which include small things like destroying some furniture, or bigger things like harming or even killing other dwarves in a fight. I'm going to press N to open up the nobles screen, and you'll see here we've got an option to select a sheriff. Now, since we're at a population of 50, pretty soon we're going to have a mayor that gets elected. This sheriff title then changes to a captain of the guard, and anyone you've assigned as sheriff gets unassigned and goes back to their standard civilian roles. So I'm going to wait a little while for the dwarves to pick a mayor, and once they do that, we'll continue. Any moment, dwarves, when you're ready, feel free to elect a mayor. Okay, while we wait, I'm getting a bit impatient. While we wait for our dwarves to elect a mayor, a lot of these steps are still the same. Oh, another thief trying to steal some stuff. Dwarven justice is very simple. There are basically three forms of punishment. The first, and in theory the lightest form... Oh! Goblin Thief has gotten into our stockpile. Let's rally our militia and tell it to attack. I see two of them were caught in here. Ah, got it. Alright. Let's be a little bit more secure so they don't get in next time. Now, as I was saying, the lowest level of crime results in a beating. A lot of times though, depending on how strong your sheriff or captain of the guard is, the beating can be deadly. So I always try and get a jail in place before that happens. So the second level, as a lot of things happening at the moment while I'm trying to explain this, that's fine. Caravan from the capital has arrived. I am going to ignore it for now and continue. After beatings, dwarves will be jailed in dungeons. And the final, reserved for the most egregious crimes, dwarf will get executed. You don't have a jail in place because sometimes the beatings can be deadly, and if there's... it's really happening all over the place. One of our dwarves has created a artifact, Omer Rarel, a marble mechanism. Let's check it out. Shift and O, capital O. The Green Waters. With 8,000 dwarf bucks. Really cool, thank you. Ah, this artifact relates to the founding of our fort. Awesome, thank you. I know just the place to put it. Right here. I'm sure the dwarves will appreciate your fine crafts dwarfship. Okay, I'm going to pause because if another thing happens, I'm going to keep getting distracted. Egregious crimes are execution, dealt by the hammerer. So if I press N to open up the noble screen, you can see we can assign our sheriff here and a hammerer. I like to have a jail in place before I assign a captain of the guard or sheriff, because if there are any crimes, the crimes will get reported once we've assigned a sheriff or a captain of the guard. If there's no jail cell, a beating may commence, and sometimes those beatings are fatal. So yeah, let's get a little area for a dungeon. Maybe here. Dungeon is a zone which you can open it up by pressing Z or clicking down here, and you'll see there's a dungeon option. And you can either have one big dungeon or many small dungeons. It's really up to you how you decide to design it. I'm going to do something like this. A little place for the fort guards to hang out. So for now I've gone with 5 dungeons, and I'll explain why I did it this way. The general rule of thumb is based on your population divided by 10. You can also see how many cages and restraints people want. You can press J to open up the justice screen, and if you click on Fortress Guard, it'll tell you how many metal cages and chains they would like in a dungeon. So prisons can be either cages or restraints. I generally prefer restraints, although sometimes you do want to have some cages for the violent prisoners, because prisoners can break restraints. Also, when you have restraints, try and make them out of iron or steel or some metal. I'm going to make them out of pigtail ropes. Sometimes the stronger prisoners can break free, but it's pretty rare, and I've got some nice pigtail ropes here. So these kind of look like bedrooms. That's kind of the feeling I'm going for here. The reason being, when your prisoners are restrained, you don't want them getting too upset, because when they get released, they start causing problems again. you kind of want them to understand that they're being punished, but also come out without being too upset. So I actually built beds in all of my dungeons, like that. And then in the center here, I build restraints. Now you can also put cages. A dwarf in a cage ends up being a little bit more upset because they don't really get time to move around and can't appreciate things unless you put them in a really fine cage. Whereas with dwarves on restraints, can move around a little bit and they'll be able to sleep, and you can put some food in there and things for them if you really want. I generally just put a bed and I engrave. I press V and G for engraving. You can also click down here and this button. I'll generally engrave something like this, and then finally I build constraints in the middle there. So you can also obviously build a cage. I'm just going to build some restraints. Oh, I'm out of pigtail, so I'm just going to make some cloth rope. And then what I tend to do is, so once I've got all this set up, I'll click here and I'll say dungeon. And highlight this whole area here, accept. And just don't forget, as you expand the dungeon, don't forget to add additional, to expand the zone. You do that by pressing Z, clicking here, and then repainting the zone, and you can expand it. So if I click J again, you'll see that at the moment there are two chains in the dungeon. Hopefully any dwarf assigned to this cell will be at least a little bit happier. They're still not too happy about being jailed. Well, things just keep happening today. They're still not too happy about being jailed. However, the ones that have had crimes committed against them will appreciate if you dole out some justice. I'm going to prepare a few more rooms here in preparation for our captain of the guard. So I'm going to finish building more restraints. Again, B, cages and restraints, rope and chain. And you can actually say select material after placement, and it'll ask you what you want. So if you have your metal chains, you can do that. The higher quality rope you can put in there, the less likely you are to have upset dwarves. I see our population has risen to almost 60, which is awesome, but that does mean we might need one more jail cell. And again, remembering that we have to expand the zone, I press Z, click on it, and I say repaint this zone. I'm going to let it run a little longer. Hopefully the dwarves hold an election, and then we'll continue. Otherwise, I'll just use the sheriff. Nothing changes between the sheriff and the captain of the guard, except with the captain of the guard, you get another squad here, which you can add dwarves to enforce justice. The dwarves still haven't elected someone. Come on, dwarves, you're embarrassing me in front of the YouTube. You're all hanging out here. Go and elect someone quickly. They really are having fun in this tavern, though. Listening to stories, doing a little bit of dancing. Probably have to make a bigger one soon. Oh, okay. Dwarves just don't want to elect anyone at the moment. That's fine, I can respect that. What I'll do is I'll assign a sheriff, and then later on when they elect someone, I will assign captain of the guard. It's not a problem. So press N and you click here, and then they ask you to pick who you would like as a sheriff. None of my dwarves at the moment have any relevant skills. If I want to really min-max this, I would look for a dwarf who cares about justice a lot. I try and avoid strong dwarves as sheriffs because they tend to hand out way more brutal beatings. And so I kind of try and look for someone that's got good attention to detail, who doesn't disdain the truth, but actually kind of likes the truth and likes justice. But for the sake of this tutorial, I am just going to pick at random. So you press sheriff and then you pick someone at random. How about this peasant here? Congrats, Rith, you're now the new sheriff. Let's see what our sheriff has got going for themselves. Values fairness. Ah, good pick. High stamina, creative, high willpower, and avoids excitement. Sounds like a pretty decent sheriff, actually. RNG was on my side this time. When you pick a sheriff, and this will be normal for all your nobles going forward, you'll see they have a certain requirements. In this instance, the sheriff, if you hover over the red icon here, you'll see in the top left up here, those requirements. So the sheriff needs a modest study and needs a modest dining room. They need modest quarters. So they've got the modest quarters, and that's why this is green, but they still need a modest study and a modest dining room. Also, when you hover over this chest icon, it'll tell you what items they need inside their rooms. So in this instance, the sheriff needs a chest and a cabinet and a weapon rack and an armor stand. These requirements go up the higher the ranking of the noble. So your queen or king, when they come to your fortress, will have way higher needs. So I've carved out these little areas here, and I'm going to designate this and this for my sheriff. A study is an office. So an office requires a chair and a table. And then the other thing they need is a dining room, a personal one. And I'll put it something like this so that maybe invite a friend over, can have a meal with their friend. Then what you want to do is you want to press Z to open up the zones, or click here and select dining hall, select this area, done. Then you press Z again and you click here and you find your sheriff. There we go. So the same with the study, which is a office. Press Z and select office, done. Then select the office and then assign it to the sheriff. So now if we press N, you'll see that the sheriff has a study and a dining room assigned to them, which is fantastic. And they just need a weapon rack and armor stand. So I'm going to put that in their office. That's BY weapon rack and BY armor stand. You can make these out of all kinds of things. I've made them out of rock. Now we have a sheriff assigned and they have an office. When a crime is committed, dwarves that see the crime will report it to the sheriff inside the office. At the moment we don't have any open cases, so nothing's been reported. Finally, someone's been elected a mayor. Uvash, congratulations. You'll see now Uvash will have their own needs and our sheriff has disappeared. So I'm going to click Captain of the Guard and I'm going to find Rith again. I think he was a pretty good sheriff. He'll be a good Captain of the Guard. There we go, Rith. You'll see now that Rith is Captain of the Guard, his requirements have changed a little bit. Now he needs modest quarters. That's pretty easy to achieve. We find Rith in the names. I'm going to find where his quarters are. And I am going to do some engraving. Usually that's enough for this level of quarters. I'll also smooth this out. And we'll check back on this a bit later. Now that the weapon rack and armor stand's been installed and the final chair goes in. So I'm going to press J again to open up the justice screen. And it's this icon here at the bottom. There are no open cases currently, but if you have any open cases, you'll be able to click on the open case. And depending on my video editing skills, hopefully I'll bring up an example of an open case over the top here. And then you'll be able to interrogate or convict people based on how many people have witnessed the crime. Closed cases are cases that you've solved where you've convicted someone. Cold cases are cases which are older than a year, which are open. This fortress guard is all the members of your fortress guard. At the moment it's just Rith, and it also shows you how many restraint chains you need. This will be where all your previous criminals' history is maintained, and we'll talk about intelligence in a different video. Finally, now that we've got a captain of the guard, we can get a fortress guard. The way you do that is you click create new squad, captain of the guard squad. You can give them any uniform you want. I like to give them metal armor, and this is just the same as a regular squad, so you're able to assign positions to the squad, and you're also able to assign the squad to a training area. That's the area I made here for them. Click barracks, accept, and then you're able to say they will train in here, for example. At the moment we don't have too many upset dwarves, so I don't expect much crime. However, sometimes someone will try and steal something and then straight to jail. Okay. Thanks for watching. If you've made it this far, I really appreciate it. Hope you enjoyed it. If you did, feel free to leave a comment, press subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Cheers.